slow shutter street. So what would happen if we slowed down our shutter speed intentionally for street? And does a messy photo mean that our photos are no longer interesting? Let's talk about it. So last week I was out shooting street, and usually when I'm shooting, I switch back and forth between two different modes, aperture priority and manual mode. So sometimes what happens is you actually forget your current settings, and this is exactly what happened to me. So some of these frames I was shooting at 1/8 of a second, 1/15 of a second, so they were really blurry, overexposed, but it did get me thinking, what could I create with a slower shutter speed? And could it possibly add like a new layer to my street storytelling? So now I began envisioning my compositions to be more like paintings than photographs. You know, smudgy, charcoal-like drawings with atmosphere and soft motion. So now that I had this new focus and intention, all I had to do was get out there and try it. So I thought it'd be helpful to share 3 adjustments or tips to help you create mystery, atmosphere, and movement in your images intentionally. Okay, so number 1, slow down your shutter speed anywhere from 1/2 a second to 1/60th of a second. But you're gonna have to like experiment and analyze your results until you find the sweet spot for you. But be very aware of your f-stop aperture based on the lighting situation. The last thing you want is overexposed or underexposed images. So number 2, focus in on a single subject. Now, it doesn't mean you can't shoot a crowd, but even in that crowd, try to have one main focus. This will help create atmosphere around your main subject when the shutter speed is really slow. And number 3, follow your subject. So this could be east-west or it could be north-south, but it's different than just standing in one space and pressing the shutter and having people come in and out of your frame. So try your best to move with your subject to create that energy or that motion. And a bonus to that, practice, practice, experiment, move around, perspective. You get the drill. So this slow shutter exercise taught me a couple of things. I want to share that with you now. If I had an interesting location, half the job was already done. I just had to find something unique about the space. It could be a fire hydrant, it could be a brick wall, it could be a crowded intersection. It doesn't really matter. That's up for you to decide. But because it was interesting, something about it, when a subject that I really liked came into the frame, it just added another layer to my storytelling. So experimenting in daylight with slow shutter. This seems obvious. When I tend to think of slow shutter speeds, I think of evening or late night, long streaks of light. That's what I think of when I think of slow shutter. But broad daylight, based on your settings, you could get some unique perspectives, whether it's shadow or light. You can just get movement in broad daylight that creates atmosphere and motion. As long as your shutter speed is slow, you're going to get unique results. And finally, patience. This is probably the word that comes up the most in my videos, and I think it's because no matter what you're doing, if you give the image or the composition or the location some time, if you give it that time, then the stories will start to build. The stories will start to come into the frame. Your patience will be on full display in your final image. The more you practice patience and practice in general, I find that you're gonna get the results that you actually want. And we really just want one great image every time that we go out there, just one. Okay, so that just about wraps up today's video. Slow shutter street. I mean, I had fun really getting out there and trying these actual settings myself. It's improving my own photography, but hopefully there's a tip or 2 that helps your photography. That's really what this is all about. We're learning and teaching each other. But let me know in the comments below, do you shoot a lot of slow shutter speed street? That's a mouthful. And if you do you enjoy it? Do you do it in broad daylight? I really want to get a gauge of how many people really shoot street with slower shutter speeds. So until the next video, stay focused and believe in yourself. Peace.